Okay, so I'm going to talk about Expedia. We're not 87 years old. We're probably much newer to the scene than the other guys up here. So a bit of history about Expedia I thought I'd talk about is we were formed in 1996. I don't know if many of you know that we're part of Microsoft to begin with. So there's a couple of the techie guys at Microsoft doing their thing over in the US, decided to come up with this online booking engine, and they went sent off to a side room, started creating it, and they came up with Expedia, and we branched off just a couple of years after Microsoft, and have stayed very tightly linked on the the technology side of things with Microsoft as well for us. As for me, I've been with Expedia 6 years now. Started with them in the UK office and came back to Australia about 3 years ago. I've worked in the travel industry probably for too long, nearly up to 20 years now, so starting in the wholesale side of business, moving to airlines, and then onto the online travel side. So, a little bit about Expedia. We're quite big in terms of global reach that we have. Nearly 120 million room nights we sold in 2012, $34 billion US worth of group bookings. Of that, 3 million packages were sold, and there's over 12,000 people currently working for Expedia throughout the world. So a couple of propaganda slides as well. So hopefully not too many, but yeah, there's quite a lot of us. We have offices all around the world, which I'll talk about a little bit as well, but we have grown quite a lot in the time that we've been around. Our mission is to revolutionise travel through the power of technology. So that's our Microsoft background. We want to make it easy for people to book, to share their experiences, to plan everything. So we want to be a tool where they can come, they can look at all the options that they've got, they book with us, and then they share that with all our other customers as well. And we think that sharing is a big part of it going forward in the industry as well. Personal recommendations from people has a much higher effect than us rating the hotel. Our reviews on our side are all people have actually booked and travelled to the hotels, so we do make sure that we get confirmation that the people have travelled and the reviews are verified for us. If you didn't know, we operate under several different brands as well. So obviously the Expedia brand is your full service brand where you can book your flights, your accommodation, you can book your day tours on there as well if you'd like to. We've just launched cruises as well in Australia, so we're trying to respond to the customer demand of what they want to book on their Expedia site. Hotels.com is hotels, they don't do anything else apart from hotels. Hotwire is our opaque channel. It's not a big brand in Australia, it's quite big in the US, but you'll see it over here a little bit, and that's where the hotels might want to do a secret hotel deal. So you won't know which hotel you're staying in, but you know what the rate is. Venere is a European brand. It's hardly known over here at all, but there's a very big in Mediterranean Europe. Agencia is our corporate arm, so we're not just leisure, we do corporate companies as well, so small to medium-sized companies that can't negotiate corporate rates themselves, they can come to us and then we'll do it as part of Agencia. Elong, so we could probably talk a lot about China, everyone's going to talk about China, but Elong is our Chinese brand. We can't operate in China under Expedia, nice all these Chinese laws, but we do have Elong, which is number 2 in China. Our affiliate network, I have a slide on later. Local Expert is our day trip brands and our experiences. And AirAsia Go, I have a slide on as well. If you don't know, we're in a joint venture with AirAsia Go. They have a lot of routes into Australia that we're supporting with hotel products. And Trivago, which is a meta channel that we have bought last year. So our brands are global, so 150 travel booking sites in 70 countries. So this is one thing that we think is our strength. We can translate into all those languages your product, or the hotel's products, the airlines, so we can reach all these customers in a matter of seconds as soon as we upload it onto one of our sites. Everything is on a central system that we use, so we don't have to use multiple systems, and then it automatically goes out to the world.
Do your staff do the translations in your offices, or do you?
It varies. So we have a generated translation service that we would use, but then we have what we call gold content, and then we would have teams around the world that locally translate all those.
Right.
Yeah. So we have to, on scale, it's really hard to translate, over 200,000 hotels. So we do have an automatic system. Hotels can go in, choose all the facilities that they have. That will automatically create some English content. We then get translated into all the different languages that we have. Particular partners, we can upgrade to gold, and then we'll manually translate it for them. And I think that's a key point because the generated translation can sometimes lose a bit of flavour. It's very generic and those sorts of things, and that's great for scale, but you do want some product out there which is especially in the secondary markets that we talked about, you need to describe it in more detail to get the consumers to understand it. So we do have gold content as well. So affiliate network. This is a little bit like your wrapping, your brochure wrapping. So this is where we will have all our product and our technology, but actually it's a different company that you think you're buying from. So this is just some of the examples that we work with in APAC. There's a lot of others that we're not allowed to tell you about because it's white labeled. They don't want you to know that it's our product that they're selling. They have their own brand integrity to protect, but it's exactly the same as the brochure wrapping that we talked about earlier as well. AirAsia, I thought I'd just talk about this a little bit because we are in a joint venture with them, and that means we've invested quite a lot of money into their site and they're investing into Expedia. So a lot of the Expedia brands in Asia are actually joint venture brands. So for us, this is great because it gives us exclusive access to their specials that they have en route into Australia. So no other company will have them apart from Expedia. It also means all the hotel product is featured on AirAsia Go. So there's a win-win for us. It's doing really well. There's new routes being launched. Adelaide is starting at the end of October, and that's going to be four times a week, and then increasing to 5 times a week. And we think this really does open up some new markets coming into the country. Mobile. So we think mobile, we know mobile is going to be a huge thing, and everyone's talking about it. We've obviously invested a lot of money in making sure that we're mobile ready on all our sites. This could be on your phone or the tablet. There's a lot of people these days that don't have a desktop anymore, and they're increasingly using their tablets to book their holidays. We want to be ready that our sites are easy for them to understand and as usable as a desktop site as well. So we have definitely in the last few years invested a huge amount of money to make sure that we're ready, and you can see multiple millions of downloads have happened, and we're continuing to do that as well. So for my team, so I look after the market management team. We take care of all our hotel partners throughout Oceania, which is Australia, New Zealand and Pacific Islands. Our key things is having a relationship with the hotels, so meeting our hotel partners on a regular basis, talking to them about what the market's doing, making sure that they're getting some feedback from how we see the market, and then coming up with ideas to increase their bookings for us. One of the things that we do is because we have those global sites, we can actually run promotions on selected sites as well. So if a hotel or chain is interested in increasing their UK business, for example, we can talk to our UK point of sale and have something featured on that site. So we're online, but we are out and about quite a lot. These are all our offices throughout APAC, and so in Australia we have Brisbane, Sydney and Melbourne. We think it's really important to be as close to our partners as possible. So we just opened Brisbane a couple of weeks ago, which is great, and hopefully we'll have one in Perth pretty soon as well. So we want to be out knowing what's going on in the market and then feeding that back up to our points of sale. Let's put in some trends as well. So these are some APAC trends, and you can see the amount of money that's at stake. It's massive. So travel spending is $66 billion US, 22% of the whole travel market is online for APAC, and obviously it's going to grow. China, definitely, one of the fastest growing. India as well is a huge potential, which everyone's been talking about. We see the same trends. In terms of the OTA landscape, you can see 30% of online travel markets through the OTAs. And again, for us, there's a lot of really good local players. What If is massive in Australia, we know that. It was really interesting. When I worked in the UK, we never heard of What If. Didn't know who they were at all. And I was like, who are these What If people? And I got to Australia and I was like, they're pretty big. So it's interesting, as a global player, you need to really know who your local players are as well, because you don't appreciate it if you're not local, who some of these companies are. Just some booking trends I thought I'd share. So this is APAC travellers who are booking into APAC, just under 60% share, so massive for APAC to APAC. America is 20% share into APAC, and Europe is 21% share. So you can see how dominant APAC into APAC is, and we think it's going to grow even more. In terms of Australia itself, we consider New Zealand domestic, but we don't want to talk about that to your Kiwi colleagues, but for us we talk about Australia and New Zealand. So it's a 66% share for us, which stays within Australia and New Zealand. Other parts of APAC is a 10% share and growing really fast. America is at 12%. We've seen that grow a little bit, but the share is only slightly increasing because the growth domestically is being so big. and Europe at 12% share. This is the one that we've seen is fairly stable for us. In terms of booking windows, Expedia tends to have a really long booking window, so it's at 32 days with a length of stay of 2.7. That's for APAC overall. For Australia, you can see domestically we're at 32 days, which is quite long compared to some of our competitors as well. There's a couple of reasons for that. Obviously, the package path drives a lot of it. If your consumer books a flight and a hotel, they tend to book a lot further out than if they just book their hotel by themselves. 2.2 length of stay, and for international people, you can see a 48-day booking window, so they are booking that further out. And although it says 2.8 length of stay, this is the length of stay at any particular hotel. So it's not their length of stay in total, it's how often they stay. So their length of stay for their whole journey is going to be much longer than domestic. In terms of opportunities, so the low-cost carriers are definitely opening up new markets. That's outbound and inbound. We see that as a big opportunity to make sure that we're on board with all of those. Inbound from Asia, we've talked a lot about China and India, but there's a huge potential in places like Malaysia and Indonesia. I think we need to make sure that we're translating into those languages really well and embracing those countries for inbound travel. So internet penetration is definitely high in Australia. It's not so high in other countries. We think that's a huge opportunity. It's going to continue to grow. There's still a small amount of people booking on OTAs, and given the amount of penetration, we're a bit behind the US in that, so we think there's a lot of growth still to be had. In terms of challenges, what we miss out on, I guess, from Expedia is one of our things is the complex travel arrangements. So if people want to have a really complicated itinerary that includes multiple stops in various places, they are going to need a traditional travel agent and getting that advice, and they're not booking, or they're doing a lot of research online and they don't book online. So we see that as one challenge that we need to address to make that process a bit simpler. So technology is both an opportunity and a challenge for us because it changes. As soon as we release something, it's out of date. So we need to make sure that we're keeping on top of technology and consumer demand. So one of the things that we've changed on our sites recently is hotels are having the option to, consumers are having the option to pay now or pay later. So traditionally on our site, it was always pay Expedia now, and then that's it. Booking.com came into it as an agency model. So what we've done on our side is we've launched a pay now or pay later option. So the consumer gets to decide what they want to do. And we've seen really good success with that as well.
With that, if you're paying later, does that mean that you're not locking in the price?
The price is locked in. Yes. What's not locked in is the exchange rate. So a local price is locked in. So this is where we're seeing people take it up with the dollar fluctuating so much. They lock in to pay $200 a night. If they're coming from the US, that may fluctuate for them. Yeah. So they may take the gamble to lock in that exchange rate or gamble and think, I'll get a better rate later. But the local rate is locked in. And for us, we have to remain competitive and relevant to consumers. So that's doing lots of research, making sure we know what consumers want, and then delivering some technology to address that as well. Any questions? You were allowed to ask.
I hope so. I keep learning every day. That's something I have learned over the years. Just on the currency, so when you go onto Expedia, so there's a daily exchange rate, like if I'm looking at USD or US product,
yep.
It's a daily spot.
Yeah, it's actually updated a couple of times a day.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow. I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. I mean, it gives us that flexibility. If something just changes quite radically, you get the benefit of it straight away to respond.
What percentage of customers would lock in, like in terms of
pay now?
Yeah.
So we've only launched this year, and so we're still seeing 80% of customers lock in and 20% not lock in. But we think that's going to shift as it becomes more well known. We've not gone out from a consumer-facing aspect to promote it. We're just customers find it on our site, they're booking. So once we have sort of a good number of hotels with that option, we need to train our hotels to know. They're used to Expedia saying, okay, that's okay, they've paid Expedia, so we don't want the guests coming and going and not paying, because that's not going to be good for anyone, apart from the guests maybe. But we're in the process of training the hotels to recognise the bookings at each level.
How do you minimise risk if people can pay later? Do you find there are more cancellations that way? Or?
Yep. So definitely the cancellation does increase. There's a few ways you can sort of counteract that by having non-refundable rates and things like that, but we do see on the pay later the cancellation rate does go up, and we're seeing it as well. So traditionally, again, some of our competitors would have a much lower cancellation rate, and we're seeing that start to trickle up a little bit now. Yeah, that's a risk.
Yeah.
Rebecca, what do you offer aside from air and hotel on your sites? Other ground products?
So car hire,
Yeah.
we do car hire on our site. I mentioned cruises, we've launched cruises,
Yeah.
and we do the activities. So we can do your day trips, your museum passes, your city passes, everything like that on the Expedia site.
So that's available right now?
Yes, it is.
And is it fairly simple for a consumer to do all of that? Do you find people starting to book all those different?
Yeah, so one of the things we have at the top, all the tabs are there, so you can see activities quite plainly, but we'll cross-sell. So if you booked a flight to Brisbane and you haven't booked a hotel, we'll email you and say, you've got a flight to Brisbane, here's a hotel, or you booked a hotel, have you thought about what you're going to do in Brisbane? And then give them some ideas of what we do. And we think that's really important with the secondary markets, educating them on what can actually be done.
Yeah. I thought it was quite interesting, your booking patterns, and I think it was about 44, 48 days prior to arrival. And you mentioned 48 days, and you mentioned that is actually longer than a lot of your competitors.
Yeah.
How do you gauge that? Just out of curiosity.
So we talk to the hotels. The
Oh,
hotels
okay.
are great at giving
Got
us
it.
some information of how we compare. And you know, we are at conferences all the time with other OTAs where they present their information and we can see